Relationships ebb and flow, and we talk a lot about attachment, and there's people that really love to talk about attachment styles, but there's also the art of detachment in relationships, which I think is equally beneficial. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you all about today was, learning how to detach from relationships, and you can do it in a way that's loving, in a way that's respectful. But you want to be able to detach from relationships when they no longer serve a purpose, when you've outgrown them, when they're not beneficial to you, or when you and that person you're just not aligned on values and things like that. You see they're moving down a different path that doesn't resonate with you. Um, and I think one of the things, the first thing that you want to do is you want to you really want to feel secure within yourself, because a lot of times when people can't detach, when they can't let go, it's because they don't like being alone. They're very fearful of being abandoned or being by themselves. So I encourage in everyone to get comfortable with the idea of being alone, spending time with yourself, feeling safe in your own body, in your own mind, going out places by yourself. So I think that's first and foremost. Because the more secure you get with yourself, the less fearful you are about being with yourself or by yourself, right? And so your choices, your relationship choices, won't be driven by fear or lack mindset, if you will. So that's number one. But number two is you want to give the person that you're not aligned with anymore, you want to be able to give that person space. And you can certainly have a conversation with them before you do that. If you think that's beneficial, um, if they can take in what you say, and it could be a mutually beneficial conversation, I would invite you to do that. And you could tell them about their actions and how you're feeling about it. But I would keep the notion about taking a step back, to yourself, because some people, when you tell them, hey, I'm going to take space and time from this relationship, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll have this knee-jerk reaction, and then, it's like, oh, now all of a sudden they want to act right. And then they want to spend more time with you, and they want to get up, they're upset. And so, they may, step it up for a couple weeks and be hot and heavy and that sort of thing. So I think, you taking space or taking a step back, you should keep that to yourself. Or you could put it in such a way where it's like, um, your actions aren't really aligning with me, or I'm not really okay with what's going on here. However you want to word it is up to you. Everybody's unique in that situation, but you let that person know that it's not cool what you're doing, or I feel like we're out of alignment, essentially. And then you want to take a step back, and that step back would, that's going to look different for everybody. But you know, when you take a step back, you're very conscious and intentional, and like, you want to maybe focus on other relationships or other things that you've got going on in your life. So whereas maybe you and this person were talking every day, spending, every evening together, you're making a conscious effort to go out and spend time with other friends, or just kind of do your own thing when you get home and get off work, or you're kind of breaking away from the monotony of that routine and getting out of that cycle. Um, so I think that's number one. Number two is, a lot of times um, people can want us to help them solve problems, or to help them fix it, or there's always some sort of crisis. And again, with the art of detachment, and everybody's different, you can provide a supportive ear if you want to, up to a certain extent. but it should not be at every single interaction, meaning that you're not the person who's always listening and problem solving, or listening at every single interaction to someone dumping their problem on you. But the other thing is to let that person solve their own problems. Um, so don't rush in and try to be a white knight, to try to save the day. Allow that person to fix their own problems, come up with their own solutions. Put boundaries on how much you're also going to listen to them vent. Like, hey, oh, you listen to me. Don't allow it to be one-sided, whereas you're only listening to them and no one's asking you anything. Because if that's the case, whereas this person always sort of shows up with some sort of chaos and crisis, they're not high functioning enough to be kind of hanging out with you. So you have to make a decision on whether or not you want to continue to engage in that or not. Because what tends to happen is sometimes people show up like that, problem after problem after problem, and that is really, it starts to become an energy vampire. It starts to become a drain on your system. And it's like, okay, there's no reciprocity in the relationship. So I would encourage you to get out of that. Number three, again, when people show up in a way, they present with a lot of emotions and things like that, I would detach your emotions from a person in their situation, and you could listen and be objective without getting emotionally involved. That's their stuff, and you could be supportive, but not get emotionally involved. Kind of like, I don't know, maybe like an HR manager or something like that, where they kind of listen to people go on a rant, but they're not really, at least they're not supposed to get emotionally involved with each and every, worker's problems, but they can help people sort of troubleshoot. Or they can listen to people, and how they shot their problems, and then maybe propose next steps. And then, let go of feelings of obligation. I hear a lot of people talk about, I feel obligated to do certain things, especially with like their parents and things like that, where people just, they feel like tied into decisions that they don't want to do, or tied into actions that they don't want, that they don't necessarily want to participate in out of obligation, because I'm a daughter, because they're my mom, blah, 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 right? Or because it's cultural and this and that and the other. So, I always say, and everybody's different. I can't tell people what to do, but, I would let go of that feeling of obligation, and maybe rethink, your values as it pertains to your culture, as it pertains to your norms, or as it pertains to your relationships, and how you want to show up and how you want people to show up for you. There's a lot of stuff that's rooted in the old ways, or the dominant ways, or the more acceptable ways, and you have to decide for you whether or not that works for you or not. And it's not necessarily one size fits all, and you're allowed to do that. And especially when you become an adult, you're grown, and you pay your own bills, and you do your own thing. So I'm just going to put that out there, for you guys. When you let go of that obligation, that means you are no longer bound to a relationship. So I don't owe you anything. You did X for me 10 years ago. I don't owe you my firstborn child. I don't owe you my right kidney because you did this, or because we've known each other for so long. You can make a decision to get out of something or let go of someone, regardless of time or things that have transpired. Hope that helps. Thanks.